Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined as always by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are looking at play props here for you guys on a Tuesday night in the NBA. Just 6 games to choose from tonight, but we do have some spicy picks for you guys. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along. We are bringing you these videos each and every weekday and have a couple game videos up for you as well. Also head to thelines.com. We're throwing all these picks up there and more up on the site. And we also have that odds finder tool Nate and I are using each and every day up there to make sure you're getting the best odds available to you and all these bets you want to make in the NBA this season from all these different books. Nate, let's go ahead and just jump right into your first NBA play prop for tonight.
Yeah, so Jaylen Brown came out last week with some, somewhat vague comments about not necessarily being part of the Celtics plans or whatever. He says he was taken a little bit out of context. Obviously, everything was blown out of proportion because that's the NBA news cycle. But, I mean, definitely you've seen some results in the last 2 games that the team's like, all right, the simplest way to handle this is to just make sure Jaylen gets on the All-NBA team. Then we can give him a supermax, and then he's just part of this team for 5 years or whatever it will be. So they just let him go off for 41 points in a 44-point win on Sunday. So, to me, that shows you that I'm not that worried about the 11-point spread in Washington. The fact that Washington has already ruled out Beal and Kuzma, might also rule out Daniel Gafford, which definitely would hurt their defense. It's an easy matchup. Washington's lost 8 of 10 with a 122 defensive rating, actually giving up the second most points and most threes to small forwards in their last 7 here. Jaylen averages 31 points on a 35% usage rate with elite splits. His last 3 against the Wiz, that's a 136 offensive rating in those 3. In his last 7, he's getting 32 a game, 122 offensive rating. He's a plus 66. He's been the most consistent player, even before these comments, on a team that is kind of sputtering and kind of losing focus. And in particular, Jason Tatum just hasn't been very efficient at all since the All-Star break, and Jaylen has been. And it's kind of both him making his case to the franchise and making his case for All-NBA, which is something I think the front office would very much like him to do. So, again, I think he should get plenty of usage. Score over 26.5, which is his prop. It's at even money, basically. And plus 140 for 4 assists is juicy. I'd have no problem lumping any of these together for 35.5 PRA. He's been pretty consistently over 10 rebounds and assists in this span as well. And just being the best player on the floor, frankly. I'm not trying to take more shots at Tatum or anything. I'm just saying Brown has more on the line right now and that the franchise wants to see him succeed.
We are watching and we are witnessing the division of Boston sports fans here. Nate on one side of the argument. Nate's a Jaylen guy. Are you a JB guy or a JT guy? But no, I think it's silly. I agree with you, man. I'm joking. I'm not putting words in your mouth. Boston fans, don't listen to me. But no, more importantly, this is so silly. This was Jason Tatum hanging out with his good friend Kevin Durant at one point during a time where trade talks were going on about KD, and because Jason Tatum walked into a Starbucks with KD, everyone's like, oh my God, he's going to Boston. And then the media comes rushing to Jaylen Brown like, Jaylen, what do you think of the fact that Jason Tatum and Kevin Durant had frozen yogurt together yesterday? And it's like, nobody cares, dude. Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are also friends. This is fine. I think JT's watching him going, yeah, Jaylen, just go get yours right now, man. I don't care. There's 7 games left. I don't have just nearly as big of an ego about it as is made out to be. So go ahead and get yours. And I totally agree with you on the sort of game theory of Jaylen Brown being the guy right now for this team, that they want to get him some points. And who knows if they're going to be able to catch the Bucks with 2 games left. The Bucks don't really lose anymore, have an incredibly easy schedule. And I don't know that that's necessarily their number one priority as much as they want to be playing well and have their second best player in a really good place once they get into the playoffs. So I'm going with a very confident bet that I have here, Nate, and it's Clint Capela under against this Cleveland Cavaliers team that we covered in that game video. 23.5 points and rebounds for the big man. Minus 120 on points bet is the best place I could find it using that odds finder tool. I do want Jarrett Allen to play for this bet to be I can feel as confident as I do if Jarrett Allen will play, because when honestly Jarrett Allen or Evan Mobley, as long as one of them is playing, they've shut down Clint Capela to get under this prop in pretty much most of the times that they've played him since Evan Mobley got to the team last season. They allow the fewest points per game and rebounds per game to centers, does Cleveland. They allow the fewest rebounds to their opponent on the road. I mean, top 3 everywhere, but best on the road. 3rd in limiting points in the paint. 3rd in limiting second chance points. where do you think Clint Capela scores from, right? 90% of his points come from the paint. 33% of those points are coming from second chance points off of offensive rebounds that the Cavs limit really, really well. His last 5 versus Cleveland, he's averaging 7.5 points, 9 boards in that time. His rebound prop is at 12.5 tonight, which is just bad odds to go under because it's so high. They're giving you plus odds to take the over on it, and I'm not that crazy because there's not going to be that many rebounds. I know we'd like a faster pace in Atlanta with this Quinn Snyder team since he took over, but that doesn't necessarily mean that Clint Capela is going to be the one getting those rebounds or putbacks on a fast break necessarily. So he's only hit this prop once in the last 5 times he's played Cleveland, and in that game, neither Jared Allen nor Evan Mobley played at all in it. So he's averaging just 23 minutes per game against the Cavs in those time, and really in the last 10, 26 minutes per game, because since then we've seen Okongwu and John Collins come back from injury, and their front court is a lot more formidable, so they don't need him to play close to 30 minutes. He's not getting more than the 26, like I said. And I think this high total is there for him tonight because he's had success. Yeah, you look at who he's played in the last 5 games: Memphis, Indiana, Detroit, San Antonio, and Minnesota. The only team that is not in the bottom 5 there over their last 15 games in terms of limiting points to centers is Minnesota. Everybody else is just hemorrhaging all those points and rebounds to the opposing center. Most of those teams also just not trying to win in terms of Indy, Detroit, and San Antonio. So I think there's plenty of reason that Clint Capela will be stopped, even if Jared Allen does not play tonight. Evan Mobley's played, and that's been enough to keep CeCe off the glass like that.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it doesn't even really matter who he's playing against, or I mean, as much who's out there for the opposition. It just is the lack of minutes that you highlighted. Mm-hmm. He can get yanked for so many different reasons. Like he's a very one-dimensional player offensively, and the Hawks have a lot of different things going on now with Snyder, a lot of different actions, and sometimes they just want to roll with Okongwu or Collins as small ball 5. If Allen sits, maybe it's Collins and Mobley both playing center. So yeah, I have no problem taking it under on Capela because I like points in this game, and that means I don't really like rebounds. But I do like Darius Garland for the Cavs. Matching up on Trae Young, talked about it a little bit in the game video. He dropped 33 points in 31 minutes when these teams played a month ago in Atlanta. That came during a string of really strong road games where he averaged 35 points and assists in that span. And on the road, since the start of February, he's averaging 3 more points per game, averaging 22.5, slightly higher usage rate, shooting nearly 50% from 3 versus 37%. The assists have dropped on the road, and he only had 2 assists to go along with those 33 points against Atlanta. Atlanta's actually really good at limiting team assists. So I'm going to shy away from that and just say let's take 21.5 points for DG, which is really good odds at FanDuel, minus 104, because since those 5 strong roadies, he's gone cold in 3 against, as you mentioned, the Charlotte Hornets that are suddenly a defensive juggernaut with Dennis Smith Jr. at the forefront there. And then the Nets twice, a team that just doesn't score and didn't really, inspire the Cavs to score much. But this matchup is total, guard centric, right? You got DeJounte guarding Donovan Mitchell, limiting him the last time they played a month ago, or whatever Quinn Snyder knows about Mitchell, helping to limit them. And DG picked up the slack. And if he's matching up on Trae Young, it's food. Trae has roasted him on the other end, by the way, so I have no problem taking Trae props. But DG averaging nearly 30 a game on 61-50 splits with a 35% usage rate now his last 2 against Trae Young. So I think 21.5 points is pretty low. It's a good buy low opportunity.
Yeah, Darius Garland just looks over at the matchup against Trae Young and goes, oh my God, someone my size. Hell yeah. I'm about to roast this dude. But I think you're right. There's going to be points coming from the guard position majorly tonight. And a little bit of like your turn, my turn in terms of the opposition, right? Going up against like Donnie Mitchell's prop is at 28.5 points tonight. That's wildly high, even for a guy who's dropping a bunch of points right now in a game that should be pretty high scoring because Quinn Snyder's just come in and made that offense, especially at home, just play at like a very, very fast pace with those guards. So we'll see what happens tonight. But I like the point total for DG tonight. DG the PG. So let's finish things off here with Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr. We went to the well with him recently, and that crushed when he had 34 points in a game, even with Ja back. And now Ja is doubtful tonight, and he's had a really nice string of games without Ja Morant, especially in the scoring department. So that's why at 21.5 points, you can get that at minus 108 on FanDuel. Really like that. You made mention here in our notes about him being plus money to win Defensive Player of the Year, which he was for a while, or he was actually the favorite for a while. Obviously, a nice big comeback by, I believe, Brooke Lopez coming in as well and challenging him for that. So it's going to come down to the stretch, but at plus money, it was worth a mention real quick if you still think Triple J is likely to be able to take that home. I mean, he's averaging 3 blocks a game this season, so more blocks at home. We know some of the stat stuff. Not going to get too far into that. Let's talk about why he's going to get 22 points against this Magic team tonight. 31, 10, and 3 blocks in 32 minutes about a couple months ago in Orlando, and Ja, was in that one as well. Steven Adams even played in that one as well. So I'm about to tell you about all the great numbers that Jaren Jackson Jr. has had this season without Ja and without Steven Adams. Yet the last time he played this Magic team, he still had he still had those 31 points, despite that Ja had 32 points. Ja had like a 34% usage rate, right, as he's normally doing against Orlando. So without Ja in there, I think Tyus Jones, by the way, is not a bad play either. Although what's interesting is Orlando, despite the fact that every single person on their team is 6'10" or taller, has not been playing well against the front court nearly as much as they've been playing well against guards as of late. And obviously, Markelle Fultz is a really, really good, big, strong defensive guard. So at point for this team. So it's not like Tyus is necessarily going to be able to do whatever he wants. But either way, against power forwards is actually where they've been struggling. Like I said, bottom 10 in allowing points per game and rebounds per game to power forwards in their last 15, even like fifth most points there in that sense, since like I said, the last roughly couple weeks or 3 weeks, and his last 9 without Ja this season, right? We talk about Triple J and what he's been able to do: 23 points a game, a 28% usage, and in his last 3 versus Orlando, like he likes playing this team, 22 a game with that same roughly 28% usage, in just about 28 and a half minutes. And I think you could probably expect him to get a few more minutes with Ja out. In Ja's missed a bunch of games in March, and you just see the amount of time that Triple J has been getting in March so far, which is actually about to end, and he's still getting about 21 and a half points and on a 27% usage with 31 minutes a game. And he's been avoiding foul trouble. Like, there's some crazy stats when he gets 3+ fouls in the first half, or has like 5 by the start of the fourth quarter. Obviously, his numbers just drop because his minutes drop. He's averaging like 24 minutes a game in those foul trouble games, and then up to about 29, 30 minutes in the games where he's able to maintain, right, 2 or less fouls in the first half, etc. So there's some pretty interesting numbers there about how much he can, how well he can play. And Orlando's not really attacking the basket. Like, as big as they are, Wendell Carter Jr. is a 3-point shooter, Paolo's a distant shooter from mid-range, and Franz Wagner as well. So I think there's some pretty good reason to think that, he's going to be able to get his and get down low. And there should be a decent amount of points in this game for a Memphis team that's been scoring the most points per game over their last 11.
Yeah, that's the big concern, is that Memphis at home could run away with it. But Orlando's defense is really bad on the road. So as long as it's relatively close, or even if it is a blowout, I mean, yeah, but you mentioned the game where Ja came back against Houston and Triple J had like 35 points and it wasn't close, but Memphis dropped like 150 and they were just, having fun like they do, that front running team that loves to get ahead at home and then just like light you up. And so I think, maybe even in a blowout, even in 3 quarters, he can get there. Yep. It's a matchup against a big team, and he's a really quick, skilled big, which actually seems to help him. And, I'm hoping for a Paolo under, now that we have a little bit of scratch on Jaylen Williams for Rookie of the Year. We're hoping maybe he gets made to look bad. But either way, I think Triple J will have his antenna up for that matchup, which he did last time and pretty much dominated against Paolo and company.
Yep. And to be clear, it's a very small smattering of like fractional units that we put on Jaylen Williams at like plus 2,500 to win that Rookie of the Year, because Paolo at minus 5,000 probably just has the majority of the season for people to look back at and go, that was crazy. But like, yeah, Jaylen will love that kid too. Some pretty fun futures as we're coming down the stretch here, man. You mentioned briefly the MVP is back into about a deadlock, even race after Joel sat last night. You got this Triple J Defensive Player of the Year still available. I think most improved is probably out there to the finisher at Lauri Markkanen. So probably not worth it there, but some fun stuff left. So make sure you're definitely staying on top of all that stuff. And that is all the time we have for you. So make sure to like and subscribe to that page as well. Check out the other couple videos we have up for you tonight. Until we see you next. Happy betting.